I used to judge people who stayed in toxic relationships. I'd hear stories and think, just leave. Just walk away. It's not that complicated. And then it happened to me. That's the part nobody tells you. Nobody wakes up one morning and says, I want to become emotionally dependent on the person hurting me. It happens slowly, quietly. So quietly that by the time you realize what's happening, your mind is already tied to theirs. When I first met them, they felt safe. That's what still haunts me. Not the lies, not the insults, not even the way they learned exactly where to cut me without leaving a visible wound. What haunts me most is how safe they felt in the beginning. They listened in a way most people don't. They remembered little details. The way I took my coffee. The story about my childhood I only told once. The insecurity I laughed off like it didn't matter. They paid attention. And when someone sees you that closely, it feels like love. At first they were kind in a way that felt almost surgical. Perfect timing, perfect words, perfect reassurance. If I had a bad day, they somehow knew exactly what to say. If I felt insecure, they'd make me feel chosen. If I pulled back, they'd come closer. I didn't think of it as strategy. I thought I was lucky. And that's how it starts. Not with cruelty. With relief. With the feeling that someone finally understands you. That's what makes manipulation so dangerous. It doesn't begin as pain. It begins as comfort. Looking back, I can see the pattern. But when you're inside it, it never looks like a pattern. It looks like chemistry. It looks like bad timing. It looks like love having a few rough edges. The first time they hurt me, it was small. Small enough to explain away. We were out with friends, and they made a joke about me. Everyone laughed. I laughed too. But something about it felt off. It wasn't playful. It was precise. It landed on one of those private insecurities I'd told them about when I trusted them. Later, I mentioned it. They went quiet. Then they smiled like I was adorable for even bringing it up. You're too sensitive, they said. I was joking. That should have been the warning. But then came the softness. They wrapped their arms around me. Told me I knew they cared. Told me nobody understood their sense of humor. Told me they'd never intentionally hurt me. And somehow, I ended up comforting them. That was the first shift. I felt hurt. But by the end of the conversation, I was apologizing. That's when the confusion starts becoming attachment. Because your brain wants consistency. It wants to believe the person who comforts you is not the same person who caused the pain. So instead of seeing two sides of one person, you start chasing the good version of them. And the bad moments, you label those as stress, miscommunication, trauma, anything but the truth. Then it escalated, not dramatically. That would have made it easier to see. It was more like erosion, tiny comments, subtle corrections, little moments designed to make me question myself. They'd say things like, I'm only saying this because I care about you. That sentence is dangerous when it comes from the wrong person. Because after that, they could say almost anything. That I embarrassed them in public. That I talked too much. That my friends were fake. That my family didn't really understand me. That I was lucky they were patient enough to deal with me. And every insult came wrapped like advice. That's what people don't understand about emotional control. It rarely sounds cruel in the beginning. It sounds concerned, helpful, intimate. It sounds like someone trying to make you better. But what they were really doing was weakening my trust in myself. That's one of the oldest dark psychology tactics there is. Destabilize the person, then position yourself as their guide. And once that happened, I started depending on them for emotional balance. I didn't notice it right away. I just noticed I was more anxious, more careful, more aware of my tone, my words, my timing. I started rehearsing texts before sending them, rethinking harmless conversations, wondering whether I'd said the wrong thing, used the wrong expression, taken too long to reply. I was adapting. That's the sick part. When someone manipulates you long enough, survival starts to feel like love. Hypervigilance starts to feel like effort. And emotional exhaustion starts to feel normal. But the worst part wasn't when they hurt me. The worst part was what happened after. Because every time they pushed me to the edge, they became the one who pulled me back. After every cold moment, there was warmth. After every insult, affection. After every distance, intense closeness. And that pattern changes your brain. This is called intermittent reinforcement. It's one of the strongest psychological hooks there is. When affection becomes unpredictable, your mind starts chasing it harder. Not because it's healthy, because it's uncertain. You stop feeling secure. You start feeling addicted. That's why toxic people can become so hard to leave. It's not always love keeping you there. Sometimes it's conditioning. Sometimes it's the way your nervous system learns to survive on crumbs and call it a feast. I remember one night more clearly than the rest. We had been arguing for hours. Or maybe I should call it what it really was. They had been tearing me apart while I tried to fix whatever version of me they suddenly couldn't stand. They said I was selfish, immature, emotionally draining. Every time I defended myself, it got worse. Every explanation became proof. Every emotion became weakness. Every silence became guilt. I was breaking down, and they could see it. Then, right when I looked completely shattered, they changed. Their voice softened. They moved closer. They touched my face and said, "Hey, look at me. I'm not your enemy." And I swear, in that moment, I felt relief. Relief. From the same person who had just caused the pain. That was the moment I should have understood everything. Because a healthy person doesn't wound you and then make you grateful for the bandage. But I didn't understand it then. I melted. I cried into them. And they held me like they were rescuing me from a storm they didn't create. That's how trauma bonds are formed. Not from constant pain. From pain mixed with relief. Fear mixed with comfort. Cruelty mixed with tenderness. It confuses your body. Your system stops asking, "Is this love?" It starts asking, "How do I get back to the good version?" And once you're there, you become easier to control. Because now they don't need chains, they just need your hope. I became obsessed with keeping the peace. I monitored their moods the way people monitor weather alerts. I could tell by the way they closed a door whether the night would be calm or brutal. By the speed of their footsteps. By the pause before they answered me. That's what living with manipulation does. It turns you into a reader of danger, a translator of tension, a student of someone else's instability. Meanwhile, they kept making themselves more central in my life. They didn't outright tell me to stop seeing people. That would have been too obvious. They just made every outside connection feel exhausting. If I spent time with friends, they acted distant after. If I mentioned advice from my family, they smirked like those people were beneath them. If I had a moment of confidence away from them, they found a way to puncture it when I came back. Isolation doesn't always look like imprisonment. Sometimes it looks like emotional punishment. Eventually, I stopped reaching for other people. It felt easier. And that's exactly what they wanted. Because once they became my main source of validation, they also became my main source of pain. That imbalance is powerful. They lower your self-worth, then offer just enough approval to keep you attached. It's psychological dependency by design. I started needing their reassurance to recover from wounds they created. Read that again in your mind, because that's the trap. I needed their reassurance to recover from wounds they created. One day, I caught myself staring at my phone, waiting for their message like oxygen depended on it. We had fought that morning. They ignored me for hours. My chest felt tight. My mind was racing. I couldn't focus on anything. Then finally, a text. 3 words. Come here. Now. No apology. No explanation. And I went. That's what scared me later. Not that they called. That I obeyed. When I got there, they were calm. Warm, even. They pulled me close. Told me they missed me. Said they hated fighting like that. Said I brought out deep emotions in them because what we had was intense. Rare. Different. That language is another trap. Manipulators often romanticize instability. They make dysfunction feel profound. They make chaos feel sacred. They convince you that ordinary love is shallow because it doesn't hurt enough. So instead of seeing the relationship as damaging, you start seeing it as special. I believed that for longer than I want to admit. I told myself nobody had ever felt me this deeply. Nobody had ever gotten under my skin like this. Nobody had ever mattered this much. But that wasn't depth. That was damage. Real love doesn't make you feel like peace is something you have to earn. The turning point came in a moment that, from the outside, probably looked small. There was no dramatic betrayal, no shocking confession, no cinematic ending, just a sentence. I was sitting across from them after another cycle of pain, apology, affection, confusion. I was exhausted, empty, numb in that terrifying way where your body is still there, but your mind feels far away. And they looked at me and said, almost casually, "You'd be lost without me." Not angry, not emotional, certain, like they were stating a fact. And something in me went cold. Because for the first time, I realized they believed it. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't unresolved trauma spilling out. This wasn't love expressed badly. They had been shaping me, slowly, deliberately, breaking my confidence, weakening my outside support, creating pain, then becoming the cure. And the worst part? They were almost right. I did feel lost without them, but not because I needed them, because they had trained me to forget myself. That's when I started seeing all the pieces clearly. The love bombing in the beginning, the criticism disguised as care, the gaslighting, the isolation, the push-pull dynamic, the unpredictable affection, the emotional punishment, the way they studied what I feared and built their control around it. It wasn't random. It was a system. That's what dark psychology looks like in real life. Not a villain twirling a mustache. A person learning your wounds, then building a home inside them. Leaving was ugly. Not because I didn't know I should go. Because my body had been conditioned to panic when they pulled away. So even when my mind saw the truth, my nervous system still craved the cycle. That's why healing from manipulation is so hard. You're not just grieving a person. You're withdrawing from a pattern. A pattern that taught you pain would be followed by relief. That silence would be followed by affection. That humiliation would be followed by closeness. That if you just held on long enough, the good version would come back. And for a while after I left, I still wanted that version. That's the part people are ashamed to admit. Even after seeing what they were, I missed them. I missed the intensity, the attention, the way the highs felt after the lows. But missing the drug doesn't mean the poison was good for you. That realization saved me. Little by little, I started rebuilding the parts of me they had trained me to distrust. My own judgment, my own memory, my own voice. I started talking to people I had drifted from. Started writing things down so I could stop letting old conversations twist in my mind. Started noticing how calm felt unfamiliar at first, almost boring. That happens, by the way. When you've been conditioned by chaos, peace can feel empty in the beginning. But that emptiness, it's not emptiness, it's safety. and safety feels strange when all you know is survival. So if you are in something like this right now, if someone keeps hurting you, then comforting you, then hurting you again, listen carefully. That is not a deep connection. That is not passion. That is not love being complicated. That is control, especially when they make you feel smaller. Then act like they're the only one who can make you whole again. That's not care. That's dependency by design. And the most dangerous part of it all is this: the person hurting you may also be the person you run to for relief. That's how the trap closes. Because now, your pain and your comfort wear the same face. I wish I could tell you I walked away once and never looked back. That's not true. Healing wasn't linear. I doubted myself. I almost went back. I replayed memories and wondered whether I had exaggerated everything. That's another effect of prolonged manipulation. Even after they're gone, their voice keeps echoing inside you. But eventually, that voice got quieter, and mine got louder. Now, when I think about that relationship, I don't miss them. I miss the version of me that thought love had to hurt before it counted. The version of me who believed being chosen was the same as being valued. It isn't. Some people don't love you by holding you. They love you by keeping you dependent. And once you understand that, you stop calling survival a soulmate connection. You start calling it what it was: a trap. So if this story felt uncomfortably familiar, pay attention to that feeling. Because the scariest manipulations are the ones that don't look violent from the outside. They look intimate, protective, intense, faded, until one day you realize your entire emotional world has been built around someone who benefits from your confusion. I didn't need them. I needed the cycle to end. And those are not the same thing. If you've ever been hurt by someone who made you feel like they were also the only person who could heal you, comment, "I see it now," and subscribe, because the most dangerous manipulation is the kind you mistake for love.